wouldn't want me running it.
How did things go?
I tried to order a sandwich with tomatoes and pickles, and I said, may I have tomatoes?
Well, I
we don't want me running.
Before you were here, I referred to you as Tango. I combined your
It works. It works. I'm already. That's when we got home, and I put Tom's keys in the sink instead of on the shelf. So it's tan you are. No, I just am running on no sleep because I just drove from went to Missouri, Iowa, and back to drop off kids.
What you do in Iowa? Where'd you go?
The University of Dubuque.
Okay, because I went to the University of Iowa.
Oh, did you really?
Iowa City.
So I'm running on zero sleep, so things just aren't coming out right. So I was like, there's no way I'm running this meeting. It wouldn't. Just a little while ago, I jumped in the shower. Yeah. But it really very emotional. So I'm just here.
Think of the stuff we can get past.
Exactly.
Call this meeting to order at 7:02. Rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business is to approve the agenda. May I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next item is the approval of open session minutes of June 19th, 2017.
Do you want to do all three together, or should we do them separately?
You're going to have to table the executive session minutes.
Oh,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't believe they've been disseminated.
Oh, yeah. Those are my executives. Did you get them? Because I sent them along. No? That's okay. We can talk about it later. Okay. I make a motion to approve the open session minutes from June 19th and August 11th, 2017.
Second. Any corrections, edits? Okay, hearing none, motion's been made and seconded. Can we take a vote for approval?
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, and motion to table the executive session minutes from June 19th, 2017.
I make a motion to table the executive session minutes from June 19th, 2017.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
On to community comments. Any members of the public who wish to have? Thank you. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to superintendent comments.
Okay, thank you. Three relatively brief things. I've provided in your packet our agenda for our annual leadership team retreat, which this year was held once again in July, back on 17th and 18th of July. It's really an opportunity for us as a district leadership team to kind of reflect on the previous year and then really plan the upcoming school year and what our focus and what our priorities are going to be as a team, but also what we want to message the district. I think we're very cognizant that this is the final year of our existing 5-year strategic plan, and we know that after the holidays, we will in earnest start building a new strategic plan with all of our stakeholders. So we're kind of really using this year as an opportunity to really do the research about what is out there with regard to current research and best practices and thinking about schooling in the modern context. We, as a leadership team, recently enrolled in an online course known as Change.School, which which is sponsored by a gentleman by the name of Will Richardson, who actually is going to be our keynote speaker on our PE Day on August 29th. And we're really charged up about a lot of the ideas from that course as far as how schools really essentially need to change to create an appropriate context and appropriate outcomes for kids as they go through our system, but also thinking about the outcomes that kids need to be successful in a modern economy. We're kind of dovetailing that with a district-wide read of a work called Most Likely to Succeed, Preparing Our Kids for the Innovation Era. And in a nutshell, if you really think about it, it's estimated that today, if you think about it, the class of 2017, at least 40% of them will be in types of positions and careers that do not exist today. They'll be in those types of jobs within 10 years. So if you think about our kids at the elementary level and the middle level, that percentage will increase more and more. So really, it's those ideas and what we're planning for professional development, and also looking at our existing initiatives and some of the unfinished business that I'll talk about a little bit later from our 16 and 17 action plans really are becoming the springboard of our 17 and 18 district action plans, which will be shared with the committee for our next meeting. So all in all, as I say, it was a great time, as it usually is, for team building and also planning for the coming year. Second piece is just quickly a school choice update. Per our policy, we kind of do two public announcements. The first one in May, and then the second one the week before school starts, should there be any additional openings. I've checked in with my 4 principals, and right now, district-wide, there is only 1 slot opening, and that is at the 3rd grade at Memorial. In every case, in all 4 cases, they did run lotteries this year for the openings, because we did have more requests than we did openings. Just as a note, and we'll deal with this at the meeting on the 11th, we're actually looking at an increase in enrollment. I know my prediction was 30 fewer students. Right now, as of today, we're looking at actually about 20 more students this academic year. And as I say in the background notes, the biggest piece is an increase of NIPMUC of about 40 students based upon increased enrollment in our freshman class.
What's the primary driver of that, you think?
Many fewer applications to BBT and therefore fewer acceptances and more students matriculating here. And then last but not least, I've also included in your packet the final cherry sheet from the conference committee budget that was approved by the legislature and then signed into law by the governor for our FY18 state aid. As I say, it definitely wasn't a banner year. If you follow I also gave you one that shows the progression from the governor's budget to the House, the Senate, and then the final conference committee. We typically budget and count on conservative numbers because of the time frame, we always use the governor's budget. We usually do a little better in the House and the Senate budget, and as you can see, in the final budget, we picked up a whopping $1,692 from the governor's budget. It was not a banner year. The biggest driver is, rather disappointingly, only $30 additional per student, which translated to about $64,000 in additional Chapter 70 money. Keep in mind, for FY17, it was $75 additional per student. And for the most part, regional transportation, as far as we did show an increase, but the overall percentage of reimbursement remained flat. Things continue to be relatively flat. It's not particularly encouraging, and I think it shows the need for us to continue to find as many efficiencies as possible and streamline our expenses accordingly. Okay, and that's my report.
Any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to administrators' comments. Fiscal year 2017 financial closeout, Jay Meyer.
Hi.
Okay.
Everybody's good tonight. So as Joe mentioned, I have a 47-slide presentation I'd like to do tonight, but we're going to pare it down to 6. So.
Sounds good. Sounds good. 6 sounds better.
So we actually, as of this afternoon, about 3 o'clock, have closed FY17 books. So I haven't actually done the actual closeout on the software. But we typically have a variety of charges that come in July and August that are charged back to June because their expenses and services are not June. So wait. So actually the numbers have changed very slightly from what this presentation we showed by about $1,200. If you look at that slide there, that's what I have in front of me here. When I put the revenue budget there, that's what we put together when we did our budget back, certified it back in March or April, whatever that was, of 2016 for the FY17 year. The actual revenue, as you can see, was about $334,000 more than we projected. And on the next slide, I kind of detailed out specifically the major drivers there. And as you can see, the biggest one is transportation reimbursement. As always, we use the governor's projections to put our budget together. In the final end, it was up to about 940 from about 840, and then we ended up getting actually extra money after that. They came in late June. So we did fairly well on transportation reimbursement, and that's the challenge. That it's always very at the end of the year, after you basically spent all your money, you find out what you actually going to get. The vision program is something that we typically plan on around $75,000 from it. We ended up getting closer to 125. Again, so that is, we always project that conservatively as well, because you never know what's actually going to turn out. Same thing with Medicaid reimbursement. We actually only budget $25,000 for that. You keep hearing it's going to be cut back, it's going to be cut back. We did fairly well last year. That actually, Gloria Gilmer is the assistant that's supposed to work for that. She did a great job of bringing together, and that helps. The last piece is interest. We don't budget. We don't plan that we're going to have any interest revenue. We know we're going to have some, but we don't really just plan on it that way. There's a little bit of protection in case something comes up. So that came out well. On the expenditure side, you can see we had a budget of $35,742, $743. We actually spent about $60,000 more than that projection. Now, as we're going through the year, I know where our revenue is coming, so I know that we're okay to spend that extra $60,000. And that extra $60,000, you'll see some of the things that drove that over the budget. But when you end up with $325 and you spend 60 more, you're still on the positive side, and that's the empty budget. The next sheet, I kind of picked out 4 areas that went over budget, 4 areas that went under budget, just so you can get a reference to the kind of things that we deal with. The charter tuition, as always, that's one of our revenue. It's a negative number that we put in as net charter revenue, based on what we pay the kids to go to charter schools compared to what they reimburse us. And it's something we find out in late June of the year after it's all done. Oh, gee, you actually have higher expenses. So we end up with something like that. That's one of the contingencies that we have to plan for. There was also a spend assessment that showed up on our cherry sheets long after we put our budget together. It originally started out, I believe, at around $2,600. When the final cherry sheet came out for FY17, it was $18,000. So again, that's something. Now this year, that number is around 18,000 or 19,000 again, but we do it way back again. The other big drivers in our budget are district tuition and consultants for special ed. Both of those things that you can see on Again, that happens when kids get sent out mid-year or late in the year, or we have other issues we have to deal with internally. That's part of my job is to monitor all this stuff as we go through the year. On the flip side, you can see we get fairly well with health insurance. That's a result of people either switching from HMOs to PPOs, switching to their spouse's plan, different variations that change during the course of the year. Unemployment insurance, we had fairly low expenses last year. But we originally had what we thought potentially could have been people that would have been able to be eligible for unemployment, so we had a budget for that. Obviously, we got great amount of snow. See, that helps quite a bit. And the summer sped program, that is salaries for teachers that work over the summer. We'll have students that are on IEPs that come into the district. Usually budget around $100,000 for that. If we ever have money left over from one of our entitlement grants, we usually offset some of that cost, and that's where that savings came in right there. So they kind of balance each other out. And all in all, I think we finished fairly strong. In the end, total revenue actual, total expenditures actual, you see we came up with about $19,000 left. Today that number is about $17,000. So I said there's a slight change during the course of today. That's what some bills that got processed this morning. So the big question is always is E&D. So what I like to refer to is what we call the undesignated fund balance, which is basically what we actually have in our books, left in our budget at the end of the fiscal year. That $1.5 million is what we had left over as FY16. I'm projecting us to be about the same $1.5 million in FY17, but we did appropriate $400,000 out of E&D for the FY18 budget. So I anticipate E&D to be certified around $1 million to $1.1 million. Caveat to that is, and this happened last year for the first time, there are certain bills, health insurance is one of them, that we have to pay in June for July 1, July 3rd. We pay in June, we then move the expenses to July once we're set up in July. For reasons I don't get, the state says we paid it in June, so we're going to take it out of your E&D. Okay, it doesn't matter to me because I know the money's there. So that was, they hit us last year for about $230,000. I was expecting this one. And it hit us again this year for the same. So that means E&D may be in the $800,000 range as opposed to $1 million. I don't think it's a big deal because this is a designated fund balance, which is an actual account in our books. That's what matters. E&D actually is a state thing that there is no account specifically in our books that says E&D balance. That doesn't exist in it. So I think we're in good shape. All the way around, I think we're in really good shape in how we finished up. I think financially we're nice and stable. And then we've got reserve money for emergencies. We've got a very tight budget coming up this year. I want to say that every year. That's my mantra. I sound like a politician. It's a really tight year. I mean, when has it ever been not a tight year? But we've had some challenges over the course of the summer. I can tell you that this morning, I remember the numbers we were going to look at. That's $34,000 for our budget today. The last 3 weeks, we had a couple of out-of-district placements that we finally got costs in for. So we've had some drivers that push the budget in the direction we don't want to push it. So we made some tighter and tighter and tighter. So we will have a challenging year today, but I still think we're going to be stable. And the reason we can be stable is because we have reserves that protect us in case of risks. Any questions? I do have the other 40 slides. I'm assuming that probably will. I'm not kidding. I would never do the 40.
Mine today is only like 13. It's not bad.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Jay.
Yep.
All right, next item is the subcommittee updates, negotiations subcommittee.
Just an update in executive committee with regard to the status of negotiations with all 5 associations.
And superintendent's evaluation subcommittee.
So we need to set our next meeting.
Yes, I sound like the kid asking for homework,
Yeah,
but
we do. Do you want to try to do it right now or do it afterwards?
that would be wonderful. And I have, as I actually just pulled up, with the reorganization, that committee is you, Diane, you, Lee, and Sean.
have any suggestions. All right, are we looking next week?
If it was in the later part of next week, that would be fine. Something like the 31st.
I think I can do the 31st. Yep, I can do the 31st. And it's me and Sean. Okay. So let's aim for that. What do we think in time frame? And what's your schedule like?
I'm available after 4.
How about if we do 5?
5
just
would
to
be
on the
perfect.
Safe side.
So there's a youth meeting that night. So
Okay.
that'd be great.
The 31st.
31st. And that'll be my conference room. What I'll do is I'll get an agenda for that posted. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Next, we move on to old business, the final status update of the district action plans for 2016-17.
Okay. So as I do every year, at the end of the year and then also at the halfway point, just kind of, you have in your packet the actual action plans from 16-17, with each of the key actions, with kind of a status update and then kind of an explanation of why the status is what it is. I won't go through all 10 pages of the document and every single key action, but kind of highlight each of the 5 goals, what we felt we were successful as far as completing some of these key actions towards successful attainment of goal. And then based upon our reflection and then planning at our leadership team retreat, what are some of the actions we plan to move forward with because they haven't been fulfilled. So the first goal kind of speaks to designing, using, and I think at this point, we've had this goal for 3 consecutive years, further refining common assessments that we're using at every level. I know Maureen has done a tremendous amount of work with department chairs and with grade level leaders and also with the curriculum assistants to use actual formal protocols to examine student work collaboratively and then to score and calibrate the results of common assessments, how teachers are using them. This may sound a little crazy, but our Reading Wonders and our Go Math program, the amount of assessments, quizzes, tests, performance-based assessments that they've given our teachers to use is actually overwhelming. It really is. So I think we've done some nice work between Clough and Memorial to come to consensus at every single grade level as far as which of the common assessments from the banks that they're actually using and calibrating. We've done a lot of work, those last 2 bullet points, particularly in conjunction with Dave Quinn, our Director of Technology Integration, to get particularly our elementary teachers using a lot more digital assessment strategies. Something that we look forward to really building on is the use of Seesaw, which is an online portfolio system. And I know he presented, I believe it was back in February or March, about the work that's been done to get some of our younger students ready for the online administration of MCAS. So again, using online common assessments. We've had some successes there. I think a piece where we really, to be very candid, we did very little work this year is the whole issue of DBMS or district determined measures. It's very much in flux as far as I can say honestly, the regulations and the guidance from DESE has changed at least 3 times. I think last school year or the 15-16 school year, we worked really hard to start creating some type of framework for how we were going to measure low, moderate, and high growth of students and therefore apply it to teacher effectiveness. But I can tell you this summer, they haven't even asked for anything from us as far as that type of data from our teacher evaluation system. So it's up in flux, and with the unfortunate passing of the commissioner, who was probably the strongest advocate for the system, I think that's another question mark as well. I think Maureen has had a lot of success across the board in leading stage 2, or the process of tracking student assessments in our curriculum mapping program. It hasn't been completed for every course, so that is going to be a priority for 17-18. And then that last bullet point, I think that's applicable for basically every year. If you're using common assessments, part of the goal is it's not a static process, it's something that's dynamic, something that you're constantly changing and refining based upon how your students are actually performing, and then how your colleagues to ensure that there's consistency in how they're scoring common assessments as well. Second goal, again, is focused around the actual formal curriculum within the districts. And again, kind of speaks to the work that we've done with completing stage 1, which is around defining the standards and outcomes and results. In stage 2, again, assessment evidence. Maureen has worked with her curriculum team to actually define action plans with specific outcomes of how stage 2 will be completed this year. We've provided, particularly at the middle school and the high school, more regular opportunities for vertical articulation. Teachers who are teaching the same content area in different grades to meet and talk about entry points, finish points, and as far as the specific contents and skills and how we build from unit to unit and grade to grade. I think we've had a lot of success this past year in providing formal opportunities for teachers to observe their peers. We've had something known as the pineapple chart, where teachers are actually kind of hanging pineapple chart in their room that is kind of like a outside of their door, which is kind of a symbol. Today's a day that I'm doing a lesson I'm really excited about. So Diane, Tana, come on in and observe me. Here at the high school, I know John has done a lot of work, and also at the elementary schools, where they're doing Shadow Student Day. So it's kind of a different take on seeing a whole host of teachers when you're seeing it through the eyes of kids. So that's some work that we've been really excited about this year. We hope to grow next year. And then the whole piece that we'll discuss in detail at our second meeting in September is getting a solid assessment of how effective are we in integrating technology using something known as, if you recall, the SAMR model, which is a model that kind of looks to how are you using technology to promote higher order thinking. When we have the presentation of our formal iPad one-to-one learning program, that'll be a considerable portion of it. As far as ongoing work, as I said, stage 2 of the curriculum mapping still needs to be completed for all courses. And then the final stage, which is known as stage 3, where you, for each course, we detail the actual instruction and instructional resources, materials, and so on, will be commencing this year. Third goal, again, third straight year, is around increasing and improving inclusion opportunities. One of our key pieces, as far as a key action, was to do an analysis as the district leadership team and present those results on, after 3 years, what's the efficacy of inclusion practices. So if you recall from, I believe it was in our June meeting, June 5th, we gave that presentation as far as looking at different data points and the effect of a co-teaching model. I know Maureen and Dennis have put in a lot of effort into increasing the amount of PD for our paraprofessionals this year. And I think we've had a lot of success and positive feedback with regard to that. We've also developed at the elementary level a mentoring program for both regular classroom teachers and special educators that are involved in co-teaching. And that program does involve in-class coaching and feedback peer-to-peer, which we think is pretty powerful. And over the course of the spring and the summer, we've developed master schedules at both the middle school and high school to allow more opportunities for co-teaching. As far as area where we need to continue to grow is creating more opportunities for co-teachers, both special educators and classroom teachers, to collaborate and to meet. You know, not only grade levels, but between the schools, elementary, middle, high, and then to provide the same co-teaching mentoring program, both at the middle school and high school program. That will be part of our plans for 17-18. We talked a lot this school year about social emotional learning, or SEL, and that really was our clear focus throughout the year with folks like Jess Minahan, the author of the Behavior Code, coming in and being one of our keynotes, and also really being a driving force behind the Blackstone Valley PD Day that we had back on Election Day, where virtually every topic was around SEL. We've also had a lot of success in using both the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey and the K-12 Insight Survey and other feedback pieces to drive some programming, to improve program. You know, Maureen, along with the district-wide wellness committee, putting together things like wellness weeks, both at the high school and the middle school. We've taken a look at what the kids and what parents are saying as far as some of our needs. Something that we will be rolling out at the beginning of the school year is a revised DCAP, or the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan. I'm sure Maureen and Dennis will be presenting upon that soon, as you did, what was that, 2 years, 3 years ago? Yeah. And if you recall, DCAP kind of speaks to what all teachers should be doing as far as best practices before a student gets into Tier 2 or Tier 3 and needs specific intervention. I think we've also improved some of our programming in being sensitive to those key transitions of grade 4 to grade 5, and then also grade 8 to grade 9. I think of programming like the Network Showcase, what we do here at evening for parents and their kids. I think about some of the upgrades that we've made with regard to having the 4th graders come up to Misco Hill, also a parent informational night for the parents of our 4th graders. I think, you know, it's something that is constantly evolving, but I do think the efforts that we made in all 4 schools are laudable. We also made an effort to have more parent programming, focusing on various SEL strands. I think about, at the elementary level, Keys to Fluff, what's the buzz about Memorial. I know Ann Meyer made SEL a focus in the parent coffees that she did with her parents. And then also, I think about our recently revived CPAC that started up again during the second semester. And we had some key speakers speaking on topics such as anxiety and so on, based upon feedback that we got from parents. And then last but not least, just last Friday, I believe, we got the outstanding news that Mendon-Upton has been selected by the Department of Ed to be an Excel district, Excel being an acronym standing for Excellence in Social-Emotional Learning. So we're going to be an initial part of an initial consortium of now 9 districts across the state that'll be able to access resources, speakers, workshops, but also share some of our best practices on social emotional learning. So hats off to Mo, who was the brainchild behind that grant. As far as key actions that are still in progress, and will continue our work, 2 really stand out. I think within the last year or 2, we've created more partnerships, but I think we need, the feedback that I consistently get from our principals is we need to craft more partnerships with things like mental health agencies that provide those wraparound services for our kids and their families. I mean, part of it is our geographic location, but I think in looking throughout the valley and the greater Milford area, we really need to do that. I think on the second piece, and this really was a bit of an epiphany for our leadership team, not this past year, but in the summer of 16, in thinking about the social thinking curriculum. I think if you go into Clough Memorial, and I know Deb Swain at one meeting talked about the work that they were doing with regard to zones and regulation. That if you go through Clough Memorial, you literally see posters on the wall that, walk kids through, take a deep breath, thinking about your actions and so on. And that's really, obviously developmentally appropriate for elementary school kids. And we think about a lot of the traditional structures, things like lunch bunches and so on. But the question is, what are we doing for middle school kids? And what are we doing for the high school kids? And I think far too often there's an assumption that, oh, well, they're socially mature and they know how to self-regulate and so on. Next face, Lee. So I think just one of those things, because we had a very ambitious focal area around SEL, but really assessing what we're doing at every level and making changes and particularly addressing, and I think we're really with a focus particularly around middle school and high school and what we're doing to reach all kids. And then last but not least, and something that'll be, as I consider to be a perpetual goal, would be improving district communications and highlighting and celebrating our successes. We did upgrade the district and school websites right at the beginning of last school year. We did transition to Blackboard Connect, an updated mass email and calling system. Dave Quinn was very instrumental in the next 2 bullet points, in getting our teachers appropriately trained in all of the Google apps for education, the whole Google suite of tools, but also adopting Google Classroom as a more consistent learning management system. And then thinking about, and we highlighted them at the school committee level, but highlighting the successes of our students, the successes of our staff, and what we're doing with our students through things like social media and the 21st Century Learning Conference, which happens here at NIPWAC twice per year. Last year was the 3rd annual Community Eye Fair. As I said before, events like What's the Buzz at Memorial and Keys to Bluff and so on, and highlighting the good news of our district. As far as ongoing pieces, I think we need to, we still have work to do around the Blackboard Connect email system to ensure that there's more consistent use. I think we need to do a deeper dive into training. Joe Lakeview, our technology operations director, has said, well, Joe, I can just turn off the old system and force people into the new system, the new login. Yes, you can do that, but right now, unfortunately, at least 2 of our schools were not maximizing all of the bells and whistles of the system. So we need to do more work with that. I think a piece that you will see in the 17-18 plans is, yes, there is something district to family and school to family, but let's start to delve deeper into what is effective classroom to home communication look like. What are specific exemplars and how do we ensure greater consistency so that if my teacher, if my student has Mrs. Duncan or Mrs. Django, there isn't a gap as far as quality, quantity of communication. And then the last bullet point, which is the bane of my existence, I do want to publish and disseminate the district performance report. I know in a very excuse-laden way, you see the explanation of, well, a lot of that statistics do show up in our budget report. But I think it comes down to carving out the time, and probably from a resource perspective, there's no reason why we can't produce that and just have a strictly online version and push that out electronically to all of our families. So those are the 5 primary goals, and that is kind of in a nutshell our progress as far as our key actions and what was adopted by the school committee last September. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up we have is new business. The trip to San Sebastian, Spain.
Okay. Back in April, the Katie Cardamone, who is our SI coordinator, presented the proposition of going forward with a formal student exchange program with Santa Teresa, which is a K-12 school in San Sebastian, Spain. She has, in the interim, been in constant contact with her counterpart at the school, and September is actually the slowest time of the school year for the school. So plans have been made to travel from September 9th to the 14th on what we're kind of referring to as a reconnaissance trip to check out the school, check out the city, check out the settings. The group that would be traveling would be myself, Marianne Moran, Julie Gisomi, who is a Spanish teacher, who will be the kind of liaison, and Katie Cardamone. And we went through a process and selected 2 junior SI students, Katie Nadolski and Abby Murphy, to be part of this trip. So in the course of the trip, Katie and Abby will actually be staying with students' families in San Sebastian. It is pretty much a jam-packed trip. It's pretty short duration. But we have planned Monday, September 11th will be a actual reception in City Hall for us. They're very much into the whole ceremony thing. And then the evening of September 12th is a formal presentation that will be given at the school to Santa Teresa parents and students basically selling Mendon-Upton, selling a two-way exchange, selling Massachusetts, selling our region. To kind of give you a small snapshot of this, this is a website which we built this summer that actually kind of speaks to, that technically says MURSD exchange project. We are Escuelas Regionales de Mendon-Upton. ¿Quiénes somos? Who we are, our region. Isn't that a pretty picture of Mendon? Our towns, and then our school. And then more information about the exchange, about the Mendon-Upton SI program, the actual presentation that will be given that Tuesday evening, and then contact information. So it is, I think, very, very exciting. I think, as we said before, this is an exciting opportunity. I think it represents a real opportunity to move the Spanish immersion program to a new and different level. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for our kids.
Great. Any questions? Any discussion?
Sounds wonderful. I'm sure you'll report back all the great findings. So exciting.
Estoy practicando mi español para el viaje.
Okay.
Do we need a formal
Yes,
motion to
yes, because
approve
students are
the-
traveling by policy, it needs approval from the school.
So they can make a motion to approve the recon trip to San Sebastian, Spain, as discussed.
Any further discussion? Hearing no call for discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have correspondence. Is there any?
There is no
Correspondence
correspondence this evening.
All right, moving right along. Are there other matters not anticipated by this committee within 48 hours of posted? Okay, hearing none. Future agenda items include the approval of the 2017-18 University District Action Plan on September 11th and the one-to-one learning evaluation presentation on September 25th. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn to a roll call for executive session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn by roll call to executive session.
Okay, the committee will not return to open session, so.
Told the Sutter, aye.
Lee Martin, aye.
Diane Duncan, aye.
Tana Janko, aye.
We are now, the meeting's now adjourned at,